have a sunny day. It has been raining for like a week straight, and we've been dying to do work outside and just honestly get outside and do things other than just doing the animal chores in the rain. And so it's so nice to feel the sun today. I want to give you a little update on how things are going in our greenhouse. You might notice right away that there's some green happening, which is very exciting. We have so many starter veggies, herbs, sunflowers. Oh my gosh, so many things. Peppers, look at how good our peppers are doing. We have lots of tomato plants, rhubarb, broccoli, cauliflower. We planted some extra sunflowers. Philip has flowers going. My sunflowers are so tall. They need to get outside. They're ready for the ground. We have squashes and herbs and pumpkins and watermelons and cantaloupes and all different kinds of squashes. We have so many. Everything is doing so well. YouTube family, we planted all these from seed. I'm so proud of that. I can't even tell you. We have a bunch of tomato plants, and we're finally getting some heat. I'm expecting that a lot of the smaller things that we planted as our second batch are going to spread out quite a bit more in the next couple days, because today's obviously warmer than it's been all week with the cold and the rain we've had. And tomorrow's supposed to be about 28 degrees Celsius. So this greenhouse is going to be definitely warm and give these guys a little bit of a boost of the heat that we need to get these things going a little further. But we've had to make a little bit of a difficult decision on what we're going to do with our seeds here. We've put the last 4 months worth of work into starting a first batch of all of our veggie seeds and a second batch. And we've come to the realization that because the weather hasn't been that great here at our house, that we haven't really had much sun and much heat yet. And it's already that first week of July. It's July 2nd today. So we were thinking that since Philip's mom's back area there, that's right at the ocean that we show you, has been getting so much more heat. Obviously, she still had the rain and stuff we've had, but she's getting a lot more sun and a lot more warmth on that side of her property, that maybe it's a good idea for us to take all of our starter veggies over to mom's raised beds and into a garden over there. And then we'll have obviously a little bit better of an opportunity to get these things all actually to produce produce for us, which is ultimately the goal. So I think this year, because we have the barn build about to start happening and we have a lot of other things going on, that we might plant everything over there this week so that we can get all this stuff in the ground and fingers crossed get enough sun and heat over there. And then next year we can have our raised beds and stuff going here and we can get everything here. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter to us if it grows here or if it grows at mom's, because mom and I and Philip, we're all going to take care of it and, take turns doing all of our part. And then we'll be able to, mom and I are going to do canning and all of our preserving and stuff together anyways, and share the pot of everything that comes out. So I think it's going to be a great opportunity to give us just a little bit of extra warmth that we need. So I actually haven't grown these before, but one of my favorite things to see growing this year are these white scallop squashes. I know I saw them in a magazine a couple of years ago and I thought, well, those are the funnest shaped squashes I ever did see. And they're so adorable and they're white, which I thought was very aesthetically pleasing to the eye. So I'm excited. So I have quite a few of these planted, and I realized that probably we're not going to get through as many as I've planted, but I think the pigs are going to like them. So we do have an abundance of pumpkins and squashes and melons and things that we know definitely are going to be producing more than what our family and Philip's mom and dad are going to get through. But I think it's going to be a great way to be able to store some of those things in the actual basement or a cold cellar, because we'll be able to put pumpkins and squashes and things that are a little bit hardier to store, that we don't have to preserve, that we can just grab out and give to the pigs and chickens and turkeys throughout the winter time for extra nutrients, which I think is great. And then my plan with the sunflowers is I am still going to plant some more around our property here. And the sunflowers, we're going to take a few to mom's and we're going to put a whole bunch of them here. But I want to save all the heads. If I can catch them right before the crows do later in the summertime, I want to put them all so that I can have all the sunflower seeds to be able to give to the animals as well. Maybe make a couple batches just of roasted sunflower season seeds for us to munch on. But other than that, I think all of that will go to the animals, which I think is just a fun way to utilize every little bit of our garden, even if it's stuff that we're not going to get through. So I think that it's been a huge success starting all of our stuff from seed this year on our own. And I'm so proud of everything that we've grown in that greenhouse. And I can't believe that we've done it all from seed. This is the first year where we haven't bought any starter veggies from the nursery. And look at how well we've been doing. We're going on a moss hunt. We're looking for sphagnum moss. And we have tons of it on our property, which is exactly what we need for our next project. As you know, Philip and I have been collecting houseplants for quite a long time, And when we were in Ontario and we moved to Nova Scotia, we knew we were moving to a house with no heat. And so we rehomed all of our plants, sadly, which was a really, really hard thing to do. But we gave them away to friends and family and people that we knew in Ontario that would appreciate and love them as much as we did. And we've slowly started to collect our houseplants again as we've kind of learned to adjust to having heating with wood and, you know, the different sun and everything here in Nova Scotia. But we're finally at the point where we're like, okay, we're into it. We're getting back. We're really starting to build our collection. We're getting some pretty awesome, like rare, much more like costly plants. And we really are getting like some size on some of them. And we need to make some moss poles. So we went online to buy some sphagnum moss. And then we're like, wait a minute, look outside. So we have so much sphagnum moss on our property. So we're gonna harvest some and then we're going to treat it so that we can obviously make sure we have no pests. And then we're gonna do our own DIY moss poles because why not? So much more fun than buying them on Amazon or something. And so we brought our trusty blue IKEA bags. I use these bags for everything. These things are great. And we're gonna fill a bag and then we're gonna make some moss poles and then we're probably gonna come fill another bag because we have so much moss and we have so many plants that need moss poles. And I think we have everything we need now other than the moss to be able to make this come to life. We're at my cute little stream here and we're gonna harvest some moss. I'm not literally standing on it. There's nowhere to stand where there isn't sphagnum moss. I'm just saying, but like a cube like this online is like 40 bucks.
Oh yeah, and
I have like $18 million worth of
yeah, this is just one corner of our property. And we have moss everywhere.
And we have other types of moss, but we were looking for this more sphagnum moss. It's a pretty easy moss to be able to identify because it looks like these little palm trees, which I think is absolutely adorable. So we're gonna have to dry this out. We're gonna treat it, dry it out, and then we'll be able to pack it into our DIY moss poles. So we won't be able to make them today, but we can certainly get our first bag full to be able to dry them out. And we've had some really rainy days. Like we've had storms the last week and a half.
Oh,
so
yeah.
the ground is so saturated. And so I can actually get the moss really well because sometimes when you pull it out and it's really dry, it just crumbles. And I want it kind of like this to be able to easily harvest it. This is the first time we're doing this. This is so fun.
I love it back here. It almost looks like a different world.
We'll have to de-stick. I'm trying to not get sticks, but. I'm too close to the water, so I'm filling up. We're so pillowy here. So this is my Monstera Tide Constellation, and this is one of the first more rare tropical plants that I went ahead and purchased about 1.5 years ago. And for about 1.5 years, it grew a little bit in height, but honestly didn't give me the growth that I was really thinking that it would. And so about 2 weeks ago, I decided to change it out of a small pot that it was in and change it to just a regular potting mix and then put it into a new pot, which I was really happy with because it's now pushed me out a brand new leaf. But as I've been adding more things to my collection, Philip and I have been plant collecting tropicals now. We've been getting a lot more into it lately, just like we were back when we lived in Ontario. And as you know, I had to rehome all of my plants when we moved. So I've kind of just waited all this time to try to kind of dabble with learning how to take care of tropicals in our new house, different windows, different lighting, different temperatures, different humidity. And I finally think that we're at the point where we can really start collecting a little more seriously because it's something that we really enjoy. But I realized when I was doing some of the things with my plants this week that I've been doing something all wrong. I've actually been doing a couple of things all wrong. One of which is that I've been using the wrong potting soil. And I've just been using your indoor plant soil that you'll find at every garden center or at every plant store. In fact, when you buy a plant, whether it be from like a grocery store, little plant section, or at an actual plant shop that you can go to find house plants, often you'll find a very generic indoor plant potting soil bag. That is so wrong. It is not the type of soil that should be being sold or advertised next to the plant that you're going to buy. It's a sure way that you're going to get you back in your shop to replace that plant, but it's not a way that your plant is going to thrive and survive well. So what I'm doing is today I'm going to make my own DIY potting mix, and it's really going to help to be able to boost the growth of all my tropicals. But one of the other mistakes I've been making is that I now, from doing my research, have realized how important adding a moss pole is to plenty of the tropicals that we have. It really, having a moss pole adds structure to the back of your plant where all of your air roots and different growth is going to give more nutrients to your plant. It's ultimately going to yield you in much bigger leaves as it trails up your plant. So if you research something like a pothos, a lot of pothos plants hang and drape down. That's how you buy them at the store. And oftentimes as a plant keeper, you keep them that way. I have one of those. I'll show you right up here. But that's actually not the way that a pothos wants to grow. It actually wants to grow up. So if you give it a moss pole, your leaves at the bottom might be small, but as it starts to be able to stabilize itself with a moss pole, you're gonna get these gigantic leaves that you didn't even know a pothos could create. And so that's what I want to do with a bunch of my monsteras and a whole bunch of my rare tropicals that I have in my collection. So I just grabbed one that I've been kind of dabbling with this week to show you what I'm going to do for my first one. So you just saw that we went out and got a whole bunch of sphagnum moss, which we're going to use in a minute. We're going to treat it and make it usable for us to make our own DIY moss poles. But one of the things that I would normally do when changing out anything in my plant would be that I would upgrade the pot size if it needed it. And this plant really did need it. And like I said, I did this about 2 weeks ago where we just increased the pot size just a little bit. That's another mistake I think I've been making over the years, is providing way too big of a pot, thinking the bigger the pot, the bigger the plant. And that's not always the case. That's a way to make sure that your plant maybe doesn't get the water in the right spot for the roots, or it could cause you to overwater, causing root rot, lots of issues. So I think this is the perfect size pot now for the plant that I'm going to work with today. And this plant wants to be able to trail up something. I can see it has a brand new bright leaf right here. It's so pretty and so exciting because I think this is only my second leaf I've gotten since I've owned this plant. Although it has got some height, this is, I think, only my second leaf that I actually produce on my own. This one and this one, which both are perfect. So that's pretty awesome. So what I want to do is I want to change up my soil, because now that I've done my research, I know that my soil has been all wrong. So we're going to switch that out. But I thought, well, my moss is going to be cooling down, because we're going to put some boiled water on it. I can show you how I'm going to make my mix. So these leaves were all my original leaves that my plant came with. A couple of them were looking a little rough, so I previously cut them. And they were probably about this tall. So they have grown in size a bit, but that's not that much growth for 1.5 years. So definitely can make some changes right now, and I think this will really elevate the growth of this plant.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so we have the moss that Philip and I just collected, but you know for sure there's some creepy crawlies in here that we want to make sure that we can get a handle of here. So I'm just gonna do a small batch at a time. Let's see, maybe I'll do like what I think would be 1 moss pole worth at a time.
Yeah.
Try to remove any sticks. We're going to make our moss poles 36 inches tall. And we're going to do that because these plants, the monstera specifically, should grow pretty quickly up the moss pole, and their leaves and vines get quite large. So I think before we know it, we'll be adding another 3 feet on top of it, or at least that's my hope. So we're going to stick with about 90 centimeters or about 3 feet tall for our actual moss pole. And I don't know, because I haven't made these before, how much moss I'm going to need for that. So how about we do that much and then we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, and I have pre-boiled a kettle with hot water.
Ah, no!
Ooh, that's hot. And I'm gonna jostle this around a whole bunch. I brought over a stick here because it's gonna be hot to touch now. I won't want to wring it out for a bit.
You might need another pit.
Yeah, so I'm gonna probably put a couple kettles worth, and then I'll drain it out, put a couple kettles worth, and when it cools down, I can squeeze some of the moisture out, because it's obviously going to be way too wet after doing this, but we can let this sit for a bit. I'm gonna take just a plain clear bin. This is now going to be my mixed soil bin, because I think in my plant room that I'm going to have, I want to make sure that I have a bin that's ready, that already is going to have my soil mix in it, so I don't have to make a gigantic mess every single time that I'm going to pot a plant or change something out, especially when winter months are going to eventually come and I'm going to want to have some mixed up. So I'm going to try to keep replenishing this after I use it. So I'm going to start with adding some orchid bark. And the reason I'm doing this is because this has a lot more chunky soil mixed into it, chunky pieces. I'm going to show you here. It's literally bark chunks, and this is going to help keep my soil more aerated. So this is basically a texture that's been missing from the mix that I've been using. My generic potting soil is just soil. It doesn't have anything to give it the airflow that it's going to need. So we're going to put that in. Pure light is always our friend. Again, keeps things aerated. Put in a whole bunch. If you're doing the Pure Light inside, make sure you wear a mask. And then we're gonna put in a little bit of our regular potting mix, which we've already been using. I have a bag left. I'm not gonna put all of this in, just so. So I decided that I was going to put in a second bag of the orchid bark. It just wasn't quite as chunky and barky as I was hoping. So now I think it will be perfect because this first batch of soil will definitely be repotting. We have plenty of plants to repot today. So my brain. We have plenty of plants to repot today, and the first grouping we're going to do is going to be monsteras, and so I definitely want to have them a little bit chunkier like this. And so also some of the soil from this plant, because this is brand new soil, I'm going to just mix into here. Typically I wouldn't do that, but it's only been in here for about 2 weeks, maybe max. So the next thing we're going to need is some 1/2-inch hardware cloth, and your size, well, I guess would be preference to you. This is literally what I could find. We have an area just not that far from my house here, about an hour and a bit away, and there isn't the hugest selection. So it was this or 2-inch by 4-inch sections, which are going to be much too big. So I think this should be perfectly fine. And I'm going to use some wire cutters to cut this to create our first moss pole. I was looking for black because I thought that then you wouldn't see it at all. And so I'm going to give mine a little bit of a spray just so that it can kind of camouflage it into the plants a little bit more. I more or less want my circumference of my moss pole to be the same as this spray can. So that's kind of a good reference for me to know where I'm going to cut. So I'm going to do a little guess there. So you can buy black coated wire, but I would have to wait probably about 3 weeks for it to come in the mail at my place. So I'm just gonna spray mine with some matte black.
Kind of hides it, makes it disappear when you paint it black.
Yeah. And I picked the Rust-Oleum kind so that it doesn't matter if it gets wet. It's not gonna just come off with the water or anything.
Yeah, it really is just an extra bit of coating.
So now that I've wrung out and washed out, we did several rinses through with water, and then now you can see that I'm in a bucket that has holes in the side where my first bucket didn't, and we just used it like a strainer so that we could get all the water and some of the loose bits out. Now we're not going to get all of the loose bits out, but we did the best we can. We're just using stuff from the back forest, right? So we're going to see how this works out. Now that I have my moss in place, I think I'll have to pack a little bit more in the top once I get it upright. I think it'll kind of settle down, but I'll be able to access that with my hands. I'm just going to use some of these zip ties. This is why I chose the black zip ties in hopes that we wouldn't see them at the end. They're gonna be at the back anyways.
Oh, it looks amazing.
And I'm gonna just pack the top, right? I'm glad we did the black because
it looks so good.
The silver would have been so commercial looking, whereas I think this is just, once the plant's there, you're not even gonna see it. You're just gonna see the moss. Honestly, I think it's just gonna blend right in. And then we didn't do a self-watering pole where you would put a tube or a really thin PVC pipe in the middle. I've had a lot of time now to research, and I've heard a lot of different things that are sort of pros and cons of doing self-watering, and so I'm gonna self-water this myself and just pour my bottled water down from the top and saturate all the way through rather than having that pole with the holes through. I think this is just, from reading reviews, I think this is the best way that's gonna work for us. So here you can see my beautiful zip tie ornaments that I have on the side, which I am gonna cut off, but I wanted to show you before I do that. I do have some coated sticks here that you could use, or just a garden stake. If you really wanted to, you could zip tie one of these along the bottom and then stake your pole in your soil. I'm going to fully submerge mine into my pot in the soil, like I've seen other people do online, or you can also use this as a secondary to be able to add an extension. Because when my plant grows, hopefully grows taller than this 36 inches, I'm gonna be able to put another 36-inch pole on top, and then this would give me some extra support. But I'm not gonna do that yet because my plant needs some time to catch up with my pole size now. So I'm just gonna cut all these off. So currently, to help my Thai constellation, I just have this garden stake, which is doing it absolutely no good because nothing can root into this. This is giving it no nutrient value to help it be able to grow taller. So we're gonna throw this away. And then I also have on here to help support it a little bit of plant Velcro, which I don't really need to use once I have my moss pole. It should actually be able to start helping itself go all the way up without needing these things that don't look as nice as that. It's just gonna be able to do its own thing. And so this is the back of the plant. Monsteras have a back. Naturally, they should have a spot where you can see that that would be, if they were in the wild, they would be vining up something or crawling up some type of natural structure in their environment. And that's how they naturally want to grow. So if you have ones that are kind of going all over the place, you might want to be able to take cuttings off so you can propagate some and kind of reshape and reform and try this moth pole technique, because I think it's going to really pan out for me in the end. And I will update you because I think it's a lot of fun just to try new things with my house plants. So I'm going to very carefully, shouldn't be too bad to get this out right now because I just did it recently. Maybe I'm actually gonna do it right in my plant because I'm gonna put the soil in here and I don't lose any of it. Really gently, because I have a pretty good root system on this plant. And I know I don't have root rot or anything because I just checked it. Let's see, oh, they were already starting to extend a bit past from having the new soil. So I'm not going to disturb it too much this time because I just did it. So I'm going to put all my soil that I had in there. My pot is now empty. I'm going to mix this up with my now nicely aerated soil and my moss pole. So I obviously want to have my zip ties at the back. I'm going to put just a tiny bit of soil in the bottom, not under the pole, but just at the back here. I'm going to put it right to the back of my pot. That, and then I'm going to fill up the bottom a little bit. And I can see where my aerial roots are, that I'm going to want those to be as close back as I can to my new moss pole. So it should go like that. You can see from the front. Does that look like I'm straight from the front there?
Oh yeah, that looks good.
Okay. I should have brought a scoop out with me, but that's okay. I can feel how light and airy the soil feels now compared to just the straight potting mix that I was using. So I think this is going to be much nicer for my roots. Going to help me with my upkeep for watering. Now, I don't typically pack down the soil on the top. I do leave it nice and light, but I did pack it a little bit more at the back here, just where the moss pole is. It's gonna kind of get affected with my first watering anyways, but just so that my moss pole has a little bit of time to get settled in there. It is flat along the bottom, which is why I like being able to use the hardwood cloth, because it gives me just that very flat base to sit in my flat pot at the bottom. So I think that that's definitely gonna help out. And now my Monstera has something that it can naturally climb up. And it was just the cost of my hardwood cloth and the zip ties. And I now have obviously plenty more to be able to do this to many more of my plants that are so desperately needing to have a moss pole now. And I think it's gonna look beautiful. So I'll update you in a couple of months, but how fun is that? It looks fun, right?
Looks so fun.
Does it look better?
Yeah.
It's already up to here, so I see a second moss pole coming in its future. So this, right now, my plant is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 leaves. One happened the first month that I got it, which technically wasn't really my leaf because it was already starting from the previous person that had it, and it just hadn't unfurled yet. So this is kind of my leaf, but kind of not. This is the only leaf in a 1.5 years that it's generated for me, and that's because I repotted it 2 weeks ago. Normally I wouldn't repot after just 2 weeks, but I knew that my soil was wrong and it was going to be detrimental to the plant and that I was doing something wrong, so I made the correction, hopefully not too late. And so let's see by Christmas how tall is my plant. So I'm like mid-thigh right now, 36-inch moss pole, and let's see how many leaves are we gonna have by Christmas, and did this method work and help my plant to really accelerate itself. I think it's gonna be so much happier, and I think this looks so much better than the Velcro and the really like cheesy garden stake that wasn't doing any good. And I now know it has the proper soil, so I feel like I've solved a lot of problems that I didn't even know my plant had until this last couple of weeks doing extra research. So I'm ready to do the other 400 plants inside.
Oh my gosh.